Welcome back. So for today, I covered the overview of the app, overview of the front-end code, overview of the backend on AWS, and then I also covered part 1, and now I am on part 2. So part 2 of actually the backend. So what I will be doing is in this part is working on content storage and delivery, how the stories are being saved in the backend. And then mainly, I will be creating an S3 bucket, a custom domain name, CloudFront, a Route 53, and an Amazon certificate, right? So, or ECM certificate. So that's the goal for today. I'm not sure if it's your first time seeing this video and you haven't watched the previous videos. I would recommend that you at least have an idea of what this app is all about. So I won't be going and describing everything again. So this is the architecture diagram. So I'm going to put this thing really quickly, just like this. So I did the first part, creating Cognito for the user authentication and authorization. Now I am on part 2, where I create CloudFront, Route 53 in a custom domain name. And then afterwards for the user interaction, which is liking and commenting on the stories. For that, I will be creating an API gateway, Lambda function, and the DynamoDB table. But for now, this is what it is. So it's a story app that allows users to read stories on the app, and also to interact with those stories by liking and commenting on the stories. So that's, I would say, a quick overview. So right now, let's just go to part 2. So let me just scroll down. Okay, so here you go. This is now part 2. So let's just go in a bit details. For now, so these are the steps I wanted to do. CloudFront Route 53 in a custom domain name and also an S3. So we'll be working on 4 different services. So I also have I would say, the detailed steps of what's happening at each stage. Again, if you are not, let's say, comfortable with just listening and then doing it. So I will be sharing this document where it tells you step by step, along with the screenshots, how to create those services. So without any further ado, I'm going to deep dive into the services that are being used for this, for this part. So the first thing is an S3 bucket, right? So an S3 bucket is a public cloud storage available on Amazon Web Services. It's a simple storage service. It's similar to a file folder that stores your objects, data in a descriptive metadata. So that's what an S3 bucket is. So I hope at least at this point you have some understanding of AWS services. So I won't go into details, but I will be giving a quick or brief overview of those services. The second service we're using is Route 53. So Route 53 is a scalable and highly available domain name system functioning like an internet's traffic controller. So I think so this part is actually going to clear for you what it is. It's like an internet traffic controller, directing users to the appropriate location for accessing web services. And then the third one is CloudFront. So CloudFront is a fast content delivery network. So it's just pretty what it says is content delivery network, which securely delivers data, videos, application, and APIs to customers globally with low latency and high transfer speed. So I won't be going into details what CloudFront is, how it works, and that everything, because right now I'm only focused on building this app and services used for this app. So I have other videos that I have explained those services in details, or there will be more videos coming on individual services. So if you're interested, you can check out those other services there. And then ACM was Amazon Certificate Manager. So the ACM handles the complexity of creating, managing, and deploying SSL certificate for web application, ensuring secure encrypted web traffic. So between the user, for example, I'm using my app, and actually the backend services on AWS, right? So for that for that transfer of information, or for that, I would say, travel of the internet traffic, that thing has to be secure end to end. And that's why I need an SSL certificate. Again, not going into details. So you can expect me having more videos on individual AWS services, but I think so for now, that's what it is. So now we have to create a custom domain name. So what's the purpose of a custom domain name? It's so Nebula Stories.online. So that's actually the service the domain name that I registered with GoDaddy. Today I will be using a different one, but just for now, so you know, this is the domain name that I'm using. So it's a user-friendly, easily memorable web address used to access your content online. It's similar to a personalized nameplate for your digital, let's say, house, right? So it's kind of like a small analogy that would make sense to you. So how do we do it? We just first go ahead with detailed steps, getting that on from GoDaddy. So again, if you want to skip this part, you can totally do that. But if you wanted to go ahead with me, you can do that. So I'm going to go with GoDaddy. I think so I have an account already, so I'm logged in. So I am going to write, so Nebula Stories 2, because I have that domain already. I hope it's available. Let's see. And I wanted to go with a very cheap one, so I don't have to spend much money on that. Right, so I'm just going to come down and see something that's really available. So for this, I would say for this video, I really don't need to spend more. So I can go with Nebula Stories.shop. I mean, it can be anything, but since it's just $1, or maybe here you go. So I have Nebula Stories 2.online, which is similar to my previous one, and somehow like small fee that I have to pay. So I'm just going to continue with this one, right? And now it gives me certain steps. No, I don't need full domain protection. I don't need any of those other services. So that's good to go. Let me just continue to the card. So here you go. That my apologies. I'm not sure this thing happened here. But anyways, so they say 5 years plans to make sure you select 1 year plans so it doesn't charge you a lot more. So I think so I am good with that. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go, I'm ready to pay. So that's it, complete purchase. It's the information has been saved there already, so I don't have to look into that again. So it should be getting processed soon. So here you go. So I got my domain name, which is nebulastories.online. So I just wanted to continue to that one, say publish my domain for a temporary website. I think so I just want to skip that for now. I don't need it. And then all this information that they have, so I will do this thing later. Also not important at this point. So here you go. I have now a domain name called Nebula Stories 2.online. So what I wanted to do is go to the domains, right? And then I wanted to go to the domain setting, or manage DNS would be good, I guess. So now you can see you have certain records in here. So what you wanted to do is now I wanted to kind of connect this domain name to Route 53. And I want to show you how I'm actually gonna to do that, right? So first I wanted to go to AWS, right? So I wanted to put Route 53, and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do that for now. So if I go back to my things, so custom domain name, I already bought it. So I'm just waiting. I mean, not waiting for now, but once I actually change the name records in GoDaddy, getting it from Route 53 and putting it into the GoDaddy, that's when I have to wait for the DNS validation. Sometimes they say take 48 hours, but most likely it's going to be lesser than that. Awesome. Okay, so these things I'm going to be coming back to it. So right now I am on the steps that say create Route 53, and I want to show you how I actually am going to do that. So I'm on Route 53. So I'm going to go to hosted zones. So now we have public hosted zones and we have private hosted zones. So public hosted zones is what I'm going to be using it for now. And private hosted zones are actually for internal, I would say, servers. So just to keep things easy, create a hosted zone. And I'm going to be doing something is going to copy and paste the exact domain name that I bought, and I wanted to add it here in my Route 53. I don't need any description. It's a public host. I don't need any tags. So simply wanted to create this one. So now it's being created. So now you see we have certain, I would say, records in here. So I wanted to copy these and add it to the, I would say, to the GoDaddy. So for me to say what's those records are, what are name servers, what is DNS, I will be talking about that shortly. But first, I wanted to add this to GoDaddy because that's going to take some time for DNS validation. So while the DNS validation is happening, then I will be talking about certain concepts and what those things are. So first thing first, I wanted to just copy these things. So if you can see, make sure you don't get this tailing dot. You just copy this thing. And then come to to GoDaddy where your custom domain name is. So don't do anything in here. Don't add or delete anything in here. Leave them as it is. Go to the name servers and then say change name servers. And now say I will use my own name servers. Once again, what are name servers? I will be talking about them shortly. But for now, I have 4 different name servers on my Route 53. So I'm just going to be adding 4 of them here. So I got the first one. Now I wanted to get the second one. Make sure, again, you don't get the tailing dot at the end. Just added that one in there too. And now I'm going to take the third one. And then going after the last one. Awesome. Okay, so I added these first. So now I'm going to click on save. So now these name servers are going to be, the DNS validation is going to take place in a while. So once again, until this thing is happening, I did mention that I'm going to be describing what those name servers are. But before any of those, I'm going to create a certificate because while creating those certificates, again, it's going to take time. So I will come to this part once again, then DNS, NS record, A records, CNAME versus alias, and things like that. You just go for creating, I would say the ECM certificate. So I'm going to come here. So this part is done. So yeah, I kind of did change this thing. So if I refresh my page, it wouldn't be showing it right away. Yes, it doesn't, right? So it's going to take some time until those things are being added here. I go here and then I am going to go to my Amazon certificate. I'm just going to put in here. So Amazon certificate manager. So I'll just go to this one. So I'm just going to just simply click on request, right? So request a public certificate, yes. And once again, you have to make sure that you get the exact domain name that you put on your GoDaddy and Route 53, and then you add it in here. And then you say DNS validation recommended. Yes, you go with that. And then you don't add anything else. You simply click on request, right? So as you can view certificate, right? So the status is pending. And is that because these records have to be added here? Sometimes it takes longer. So while this thing is happening, I might wait longer, but I have to explain those concepts in here. So it might take longer than that. If that, then I'm going to put this video on pause. Then I will come back to it once it's being done, because I cannot create a CloudFront, which is the next service, if I don't have the Route 53, the ECM certificate, and then the DNS validation happened. So what I did for now is I created a custom domain name, I created the CloudFront, and I also created the ECM certificate. Once this custom domain name DNS validation has been done, then I will be able to, the status for the ECM certificate will be validated. And then I will be able to actually create a CloudFront, and then I will create an S3 bucket. Actually, I will create an S3 bucket first, and then because I will be using that as an origin to create the CloudFront as well. So let me just go back to some of the services that we were supposed to talk about, right? Yeah, here you go. So those are the things that we did want to discuss, right? So DNS concepts, right? So DNS, a domain name system, acts like the internet's phone book, translating domain names to the IP address. I think so it's pretty simple. So for example, there is like, it just says that, right? It's like a internet's phone book. For example, there's a certain phone number that corresponds to a certain address or to a certain person, right? So in this case, the phone number is the IP address, and then the name actually itself, the domain name is like for example, in our case was the Nebula Stories, right? So yes, that's what it is. NS records direct traffic to the DNS servers that handle your domain. It's like signposts directing to your digital location. So A records like domain names to their link domain names to their corresponding IP addresses. It's similar to assigning a specific number to a phone contact, right? And then SOA, Start of Authority records, so holds administrative information about a domain. It's like a manager in charge of a company's contact list. CNAME is redirect one domain name to another, functioning like a forwarding address. There's one thing you have to know the difference more often about is what's the difference between a CNAME and alias record? Because their function is kind of similar. It's kind of redirect one domain name to another one, right? In case of the CNAME, it's redirect traffic from one domain to another, right? So it's like forwarding an address for a mail. And then while alias records, it's a Route 53 specific record type linking one AWS resource to another. So it's like between the AWS services, it functions like a bridge within AWS services. So there will be another time I'm going to be talking again about the CNAME and alias. For now, this is, I would say, somehow good enough, because there will be a lot more that you wanted to know about differences. Sometimes you say a naked domain name and those kind of things. But again, I will be leaving that for another video. So I think so we did this part, and let's just go with a quick overview. So we did these integration, I would say this setup in GoDaddy in Route 53. So again, for the ACM certificate, let's just see what that is. So an ACM AWS Certificate Manager manages SSL certificate for secure HTTPS connection, serving as a digital passport for establishing trust in encrypted communication, ensuring that data transfer between the user and the website is encrypted and secure. Again, so anything that's happening between the user and then the server, that information has to be secure, and that happens through the SSL certificate. And I think so I also showed you the step how to create ACM. So that's that. So also I wanted to create an S3 bucket now until I'm waiting for the DNS validation to happen. So let's just go here. So I'm just going to refresh this and see if it's actually being updated or not updated, right? I think so it's still taking its time, right? So actually I have to go to the name servers. Here you go. The name servers are actually still here, so my apologies. But even though that those name servers have been updated from AWS here, it's still going to take time. So one way to check if it actually DNS validation has worked is to see if the status of this ACM certificate has been validated. If it was validated, then I'm going to go ahead and create S3 bucket really quickly, and then go ahead with the CloudFront, because CloudFront need this validation to be completed. Then I'm going to refresh this page and see, okay, so this validation is still pending. I cannot do it. There is one more step that I have to do, right? So in that step is once you create a AWS certificate, right? You have to create a CNAME. A CNAME for in the Route 53. And now the option that they give is create a record in Route 53, right? So as we heard that the CNAME is actually mapping one domain name to another domain name. So this is the domain name that we have for this ACM certificate, right? So for example, you are sitting at one end, say at the client end, and then we have the backend in there, right? Which is, for example, AWS in this case. Now, if I am a user and my request is going through the internet traffic, right? So now an ECM certificate is sitting in the middle, right? And that's kind of a domain name. And here, as you can see, it has it here. And this one now has to be mapped to the Route 53. And that's why that we need to have a CNAME. So I would say go ahead and create a record in Route 53. So I just want to say create. So if I go to my Route 53, right now I only have these ones. So if I refresh it, now the ECM certificate CNAME should have been created. So here you go. This CNAME is actually coming from the ECM certificate, right? So this is where we have it. So okay, so that step is actually done. And then once again, I wanted to refresh this page and see if the status of the status is still pending. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and create an S3 bucket for this. Okay, so S3 bucket is going to be a really simple one. You don't have to do much. So I'm going to be calling it again as Nebula Stories. Nebula Stories online too, right? So just to make it different, in case I have a similar S3 bucket from before, so Nebula Stories online too. So, and then I wouldn't be doing anything. Make sure this public block all public access is checked off, because since you're using CloudFront, so this means that the users cannot have direct access to your let's say to your S3 bucket. It has to go through the CloudFront, right? I don't remember if I actually mentioned this thing to you or no. So here you go. The users cannot have when a user is actually reading a story on the app screen, they cannot access it directly from the S3. They have to go through the custom domain Route 53 in CloudFront. So now this CloudFront is actually sitting in front of the S3 bucket. So you have to make this S3 bucket I would say private, because if it's public and anyone if they have a link to this S3 bucket, they will be able to access it. But if you put it as private and then you use an origin access identity, which means that this an origin access identity, you can create it with a CloudFront, which kind of the purpose is that this is CloudFront is able to access this S3 bucket, or this S3 bucket can only be accessed through this CloudFront. And then again, in turn, this CloudFront can only be accessed through a custom domain name that's actually through the Route 53 is kind of serving this CloudFront. So the only way now to access this S3 bucket will be this custom domain name that you have. So let's go back here. That's why we have to make it private or block all public access to it. And I really don't want it to do anything else in here. So I'm just going to say create bucket. So this is now the bucket that's being created. So I'm going to check once again if this thing has been updated or no. If not, then I'm going to put the video on pause, and then I'm going to come back to it quickly once it's done. So I actually decided to continue with the first step of creation, the CloudFront, right? Because I just checked, and then that DNS validation hasn't been happened, and then that's why we don't have this ACM certificate status as validated. So I'm going to continue with the CloudFront, create the first half of it. If happen to being validated, that's good. If not, then I'm just going to pause the video once again and then wait for it to be built. Let's just go with the CloudFront. So S3 bucket. I think so. I did show you how to create the S3 bucket, right? And now it's going to be the CloudFront. So I hope I did talk about the CloudFront. So in the CloudFront, again, I have all of the steps with the screenshots attached if you wanted to go ahead and do it that way. So it might be easier for you too, but you can also do it along with me. So I'm going to go back here. So I am on the CloudFront console. So I'm just going to click on create distribution. And now the origin is actually the S3 bucket that we created, right? So I'm just going to copy and then just put that in the origin. So yes, that's the origin, and then the origin path, it's kind of like optional. The name of the distribution is going to be similar to the name of the S3 bucket. So it's going to be origin access identity, right? So right now they have origin access control, which is recommended, which is something you have to do. But since I created this up with the kind of access identities or origin access identities, I'm just going to go with a similar one. So I don't have an origin access identity as of now. So I am going to create one. So, and then again, it's kind of give it the same name. So I just want to put origin access identity, rest of it is the same. So I'm going to use it. And now they say the bucket policy. Yes, update the bucket policy because it's good to have it updated. And once again, why you need to have origin access identity, as I mentioned earlier, your S3 bucket is actually private, and now CloudFront is using S3 bucket as its origin. I do not want anyone to access that S3 bucket other this through this CloudFront. And this CloudFront, in order to have access to that S3 bucket exclusively, I have to add an origin access identity, and then that's going to update the policy. So if I go to my S3 here, I go to the permissions, right? And I wanted to show you the bucket policy. So as you can see, the bucket policy still has nothing. So once I create that origin access identity, you will see certain JSON here that shows that actually this CloudFront has exclusive access to it. Once again, so you might want to use origin access controllers, but for now I'm going to go with the way that I created the first time. So, and then what else I have to do? Add a custom header. For now, I don't want to do that. So I can go with redirect HTTP to HTTPS if a client is using an HTTP. It's kind of like a good practice to redirect that to HTTPS. So it's allowed HTTP methods. Get hit post. So I might just go with this one for now, or maybe I'm just going to go with these ones. It really doesn't matter for now, or I can go with this one, and then save restrict viewer access. So I don't want it to go in much details because if I go with that, that would be pretty long video. But for now, I have these things as it is. I'm not going to touch them. I don't want it to add WAF to it as of now. And this is where now I have to be able to get that certificate validated. If it's not validated, then unfortunately I have to wait again. But here you go, it's actually issued. So if it's issued, this means I can actually do something to have to get it into my CloudFront, right? So there is something, if you can see, alternate domain name. This is something you make sure that you add it. So you get your Nebula stories.2.online, and you have to go ahead and add it in here. Because if you don't have it in here, this means the custom domain that you created for GoDaddy, and then you kind of transfer it to Route 53, nothing will work if you don't have this alternate name. So it's kind of, so if I go back to what I have in here, my apologies, I have to scroll that often. I hope I had this diagram somewhere separately so I don't have to scroll up and down. But for now, here it is. So I created this custom domain name. I kind of added it to the Route 53. And now in the CloudFront, it definitely makes sense that I have to add it to the CloudFront so that through that domain, someone can access the S3 bucket, right? So that's the reason I have to add my custom domain name. So, and then the ACL certificate is kind of the same, right? So let's see. So I have Nebula stories.online. I have Nebula. Let me just refresh it. There was something. So if I started this, I would say, so let me just paste it once again. Oh, here you go. They actually appear. Sometimes what happens if you start the CloudFront distribution before the status is issued, it doesn't appear here. But fortunately, it does appear here. So this was the ACM certificate that we used to have. So I actually added it here. So by refreshing it a few times, it actually does appear. So again, I'm not going to touch anything else in here. So once again, if you go to the review in the origin, I have added the S3 bucket that we had. So the name was being automatically added here. It's an origin access identity that we said, yes, update the bucket policy accordingly, HTTP to HTTPS, that's all good. The most important part that we have is we added an alternate domain name, and then we added the ECM certificate that we used to have, and the rest of it is just the same. So I'm just going to create a distribution. So again, this distribution is going to take, let's say, at least let's see, 10 to 5 minutes. Sometimes it's even 20 minutes or longer than that. So once its status is deployed, that's the time that I will be able to access my domain name, right? So for example, if I'm going to say this thing here right now, nebulastories.online, this site cannot be reached. But once the CloudFront distribution is, let's say, deployed, then I can actually access whatever content is in my S3. So let's see the S3 bucket policy. Before I show you if I have added any content to my S3 bucket. So here you go. Now you can see that in here, this is the origin access identity. Now this policy is being added from the CloudFront. So if I go back to the CloudFront and I go to the security, or maybe go to the origin. So now this is this origin access identity in here. So K1K, so I have to be able to see it here. Here you go. Yes, that's here. So it's being added from the CloudFront. So it makes sense. And then what I was planning to show, if I go to the objects, I simply added a few files into it. So this is actually kind of like the stories that I had before. For example, if I click on this one, so now this is the URL for this bucket. If this bucket was public, I would be able to access it. But since it's not public, it says access denied because I'm not allowed to access it. I can only and only access it through my custom domain name. So if I can access it through my custom domain name, this means I have to wait until the status of this CloudFront is being to status is deployed. That's when I can do it. So it's still deploying. I cannot do it. So again, I am going to be pausing this video for a little while until its status is being deployed. So welcome back. As you can see, the status for my CloudFront is being deployed, so it's being enabled. So then this was the Nebula Stories 2 that I actually created. So that's where it is. Now what we wanted to do is to check if it's actually last modified. That's the date, it's been done, that's good. Now we have to actually try it, right? If it's going to work or not work. So now I'm not going to go for the certificate. But one thing I can do is I can just simply put up. So if it's being deployed, this means my my custom domain name should work. So Nebula Stories. So what I wanted to do, let me just, so yeah, it's Nebula Stories .2, two dot online, right? So Nebula Stories 2.online. It actually doesn't allow me to do it, right? But one thing, let me just do something different. I wanted to go to my Route 53 first. So Route 53, and the reason I wanted to go to my Route 53 is really simple. I want to this one, and I wanted to copy this entire thing. I know it's correct, but sometimes even the smallest of mistake, it doesn't allow you to do it. So what I wanted to do is now go to my S3 bucket. And then from the S3 bucket, I wanted to get one of those stories. I hope it works. If it doesn't work, I'm going to end this video here because it's a bit late. Then when I'm going to the next video, then I will show you how this specific CloudFront works. If it didn't work right now, I'll tell you as well why it didn't work out. So I hope it works. If not, then it actually doesn't work either. Maybe the distribution hasn't been, I would say, properly done yet, not properly deployed. So if it's deployed and it's still not working, there might be another issue. That's something I'm going to show it to you in the next part of this video. But basically, creating all those steps is correct, so you don't have to worry for that. So this is the Nebula Stories. This is the distribution that I have. And here, and it's being actually the origin of it is the S3 bucket that I have. This is the origin access identity. So I am going to try it once again. If it doesn't work, it means something wrong, but nevertheless, today is late. I have to leave home a bit earlier, but for the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how the CloudFront worked. Once again, I do wanted to walk you through a quick thing. So we created a custom domain name. We created a Route 53, created a CloudFront, and then an S3 bucket. And now for us to check if this entire distribution is going to work or not, I have to wait for the deployment of the CloudFront to work properly. I think that's the reason. If that's not the case, there might be an issue. I will figure out the issue and will let you know in my next video as well. So bye for now. Have a lovely day, and then I'm going to be seeing you again in the next videos. Bye.